I found out I'd been replaced because of a single message that popped up on the phone of the man I was about to marry. It wasn't a breakup text. It wasn't an apology, just a confirmation for a dress-fitting appointment. But the name of the sender was what made everything collapse. It was Sophie, my best friend of more than 10 years. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe they were planning something for me. But when I opened the phone, each message appeared like a cold, precise cut. They had been talking for 3 months. 3 months while I still believed I was living in a perfect relationship. The most painful part wasn't that they chose each other. It was why. My father was behind it all. He told him I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't give him the kind of future he thought he deserved. If you've ever believed that love is enough, stay and listen to the rest of this story. Because I believed that too. Until the day everything was replaced right in front of my eyes. I used to think the deepest pain was betrayal. But it wasn't. What truly brought me to my knees was realizing who had opened the door for it to happen. My father. His name showed up in message after message. Lunch meetings. Conversations about the future, about careers, about who was the better fit. He never outright said I wasn't good enough. He simply painted a different picture. A better life. A different woman who fit more naturally into the path Ryan was pursuing. And that woman was Sophie. I sat there reading every line like I was listening to my own father explain why his daughter wasn't the right choice. Not because I didn't love enough, but because I didn't offer the kind of value he believed mattered. If you've made it this far, ask yourself something. Have you ever been weighed and measured by your own family? And if you have, what did you do with that feeling? As for me in that moment, I only knew one thing. I hadn't just lost the man I loved. I had lost my place in my own family too. I don't remember how I left that apartment. I only remember that when the door closed behind me, everything inside me collapsed with it. There was nothing left to hold on to. The man I loved chose someone else. The friend I trusted became the one who replaced me, and the person who should have stood by me the most was the one who pushed me out of the life I thought was mine. 3 things at once. No pause. No warning. I wandered the streets for hours as if stopping would force me to face the truth that everything was over. Not just from that day. Maybe it had been over for a long time and I was the last one to realize it. If you've ever felt like everything was taken from you in a single moment, you'll understand. It's not just loss. It's losing your sense of direction. What would you do if you woke up one day and realized the life you were building no longer belonged to you? Stay with me a little longer because what I did next changed the entire course of my life. But in that moment I just stood there in the middle of the street, and for the first time I had no idea where to go. I didn't make a decision right then. I just knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't return to that apartment, couldn't walk those familiar streets, couldn't keep living in a city where everything reminded me of what I had lost. Paris suddenly felt too small, like a room with no air left. 3 days later I booked a one-way ticket. No long-term plan. No certainty about what lay ahead. Just leaving. As far away as possible. Barcelona showed up like a random choice, but at that point I didn't need right or wrong. I just needed a place where no one knew who I was. If you've ever wanted to disappear from your old life, you'll understand that feeling. Not to run away, but to breathe again. I took my camera, a few clothes, and a version of myself I didn't fully understand yet. No longer the good daughter. No longer the fiancée. No longer someone's best friend. Just me. Do you think leaving really solves everything? Stay with me because what I discovered next was nothing like I had imagined. But as the plane lifted off, I knew one thing. For the first time in days, I felt like I was moving away from the pain. Even if I had no idea what I was moving toward. Barcelona didn't heal me overnight. No miracle happened when I stepped off the plane. No sudden lightness like I had hoped for. It was just quieter and emptier. In those first days, I walked a lot. No destination. No plan. I took photos of streets, strangers, sunlight spilling across old walls. Not for work. Just to keep myself from falling apart. Some mornings I'd wake up and forget everything that had happened. And then seconds later it would all come rushing back like a wave without warning. If you've ever tried to stand after being knocked down too hard, you'll understand. It's not about getting up once. It's about getting up every single day. I slowly started taking on work again. Small shoots. Projects that didn't really matter. But every time I pressed the shutter, I felt like I was reclaiming a tiny piece of myself. Do you believe that sometimes the simplest things are what save you? If you do stay a little longer. Because what happened next wasn't healing. It was a turning point I never saw coming. At that time, I was still just learning how to survive one day at a time in a city that didn't know me. That turning point came on a day I almost turned down a job. It was just a small event shoot, not my specialty. I was ready to say no, but I went anyway simply because I needed the money. And maybe also a reason to step outside my room. That's where I met him. Nothing remarkable at first. Not the kind of person who immediately draws attention. But there was something different about him. He didn't try to seem perfect. Didn't try to impress. Didn't try to shape himself into someone more acceptable. He was just himself. We talked after the shoot about work, the city, ordinary things. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to explain who I was. I didn't have to prove anything. I didn't have to become someone else. If you've ever met someone who lets you be yourself without effort, you know how rare that feeling is. What do you think happens when two people both trying to rebuild their lives cross paths? Stay with me because the answer isn't as simple as you might think. But in that moment I realized one thing. Not everyone who enters your life comes to take something away. We didn't rush to call it love. No grand promises. No distant plans. Just meeting again. And then again. And then again. Little by little. We'd have coffee after work. Walk along the beach as the light softened into evening. Talk about work, about choices, about the things that had once hurt us. Neither of us tried to fix the other. Neither of us tried to reshape the other into someone easier to accept. And the strangest part was, I no longer felt the need to hold anything back. No more controlling every word. No more wondering if I was good enough. No more fear of being replaced. If you've ever been in a relationship where you constantly had to adjust yourself just to stay, you'll understand how profound that difference is. We weren't perfect, but we were real. How far do you think a relationship can go when it isn't built on expectations or gain? Stay with me because what came next wasn't an easy, beautiful ending. It was a test, one that forced me to face my past all over again. But in that moment I began to understand something quietly powerful. Love isn't something you have to struggle to keep. It's what stays, when you no longer have to try. I thought I could keep living like that. Quietly, without looking back, without returning. But the past doesn't disappear just because you choose not to speak about it. It waits. My father's call came on an ordinary evening. He asked me to return to Paris just once. A dinner. A gathering. It sounded simple, but I knew exactly what it meant. Facing everything again. Seeing him, seeing them, seeing the version of myself I used to be. I hesitated. For a long time. Part of me wanted to refuse immediately. Another part wanted to know. After everything, did they still have any power over me? If you've ever tried to move forward but still felt pulled back by what was never fully closed, you'll understand that feeling. I decided to go back. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Just to look my past in the eye and see how much weight it still carried. What do you think happens when you face the people who once hurt you? Stay with me because the answer doesn't lie in them. And in that moment I knew one thing. This time I wasn't going back as the one who had been left behind. When I walked into that room, almost nothing had changed. The same lights. The same familiar faces. The same way they looked at me as if quietly measuring something. Only one thing was different. Me. I saw them. My father. Sophie. Ryan. The people who once had more influence over my emotions than anyone else. But this time, nothing inside me shifted. No anger. No pain. No need to prove anything. Just calm. They talked. They watched. They waited for a reaction from me as if everything could still continue the way it used to. But I wasn't that person anymore. If you've ever returned to a place that once hurt you, you'll understand this feeling. The moment you realize it's not the situation that changed, it's you. You no longer need them to understand you. You no longer need their approval. You no longer need their apology. What do you think happens when you stop needing anyone else to validate your worth? Stay with me because this isn't the end of the story. But in that moment I simply smiled. And for the first time I knew something with absolute certainty. I was finally free. I left that room earlier than expected. Not because I couldn't handle it anymore, but because I no longer had a reason to stay. Everything that once hurt me was still there, but it no longer reached me the way it used to. Not because I suddenly became stronger in that moment, but because I had changed long before that day. There's something I didn't understand back then. We often think happiness comes when everything becomes perfect, when the people who hurt us finally realize their mistakes. But it doesn't. Happiness is when you no longer need that to happen. If you've made it this far, ask yourself one question. Are you living for validation, or are you living as your true self? My story didn't end with someone coming back or apologizing. It ended the moment I no longer needed them to. If this story meant something to you, feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And if you're going through a difficult time, remember this. Sometimes the best thing that ever happens to you begins on your worst day.